There are only two mistakes one can make along the road to truth: not going all the way and not starting. Buddha. Welcome to Montreal Street Signs. If streets were children, Sherbrooke would be Montreal's quiet one, enjoying long walks and lingering encounters. Ste-Catherine's would be the child that's always running, staying up too late, making a lot of noise, and hanging around with gangs of eclectic people. A dirt road in 1801, now 11.5 kilometers long, it has 9 subway stations along its length. No doubt about it, Ste-Catherine Street has emerged as Montreal's pride and joy.
Ste-Catherine Street has been home to Montreal's most prominent department stores for a century and a half.
The beautiful Victoria building behind me is Canada's oldest department store. In fact, the Hudson's Bay Company is the oldest commercial corporation in North America, founded in 1670, a full 200 years before the birth of Canada.
Dupuis Frères stood at the corner of Barrie and St. Catherine for 100 years and was the first retail establishment in Canada with a fully bilingual staff, over 1,700. Founded in 1869, Eaton's was once the largest retail organization in the British Empire. Its famous catalog sold everything from clothes to prefabricated homes. Simpson's, Eaton's main competitor for a century, built the first fireproofed department store in Canada in 1896. As head of Ogilvy's for 54 years, James Nesbitt spent his career displaying entertainment firsts, from Christmas windows to bagpipers to baby elephants. In the 1960s, he purchased the century-old 100-light crystal Bohemian chandelier from Her Majesty's Theatre, which still hangs at Ogilvy's.
Now, Montreal isn't just about imposing superstores. There are quaint little shops everywhere. Take Auntie Auntie, for example. Opened in 1932 and still a family-run shop. Now, they became very famous in the 1950s for a very quaint little idea for hockey fans, the hat trick. If any Montreal Canadian scored 3 goals at the Montreal Forum, they got a free hat. Rocket Richard almost put them out of business all by himself. And listen to this. They have a very healthy male catalog business. Robert De Niro, John Travolta, Bruce Willis, and apparently some mob people. Yeah, I don't see the connection either.
Christ Church Cathedral is the seat of the Anglican Diocese of Montreal. It is the only church in the world situated on top of an underground shopping mall. Completed in 1859, it has been designated a National Historic Site of Canada. Modeled after the 14th century Gothic-style churches of the English countryside, the cathedral features a square crossing tower. The original, made of stone, weighed 1,600,000 kilograms. The replacement, made of aluminum, weighs much less. When the Gothic Revival St. James United Church was built in June 1889, it was the largest Methodist church in Canada with 2,000 seats. It merged with the United Church in 1925 and designated a National Historic Site in 1996. In 1927, to cover upkeep costs, the church permitted commercial buildings to be built in front of its facade. These shoe shops and convenience stores concealed the church for over 78 years, the church itself being announced by a gaudy, large neon sign.
In 2005, all the commercial buildings out front were demolished, reintroducing Montrealers to a long-forgotten view and another beautiful square on Ste-Catherine Street.
Nicknamed the Prisoner's Angel, Émilie Gamelin founded the Sisters of Providence in 1843. She fought for the destitute and cared for countless victims of infectious diseases. She converted a house into the Refuge of Providence, which stood on the very spot where the square bearing her name is located today. Her statue carries a food basket for the forgotten souls of her time and her outstretched bronze hand has been worn by the thousands who have accepted her offer of comfort.
The Montreal Forum opened its doors in 1924 and served the city for 70 years. That's 90 million spectators. But hey, most Montreal fans know we won 24 Stanley Cups, more than any other team. But did you know we won more cups on Forum ice than the Chicago Blackhawks, Boston Bruins, and LA Kings together combined? Like I've said before, it ain't bragging if you can do it.
It had been everything from a three-ring circus to a tennis court, an Olympic gymnasium, and even a church. Symphony orchestras performed there, ballets and operas, the Beatles, Frank Sinatra, and Pavarotti. But above all else, the Forum is what the Russians called the Shrine of Hockey. The Montreal Canadiens won their first Stanley Cup here against the Calgary Tigers in 1924. And Montreal beat Detroit 2-1 in the CBC's first televised game.
And after the Montreal Canadiens won their 10th cup in 15 years, Mayor Jean Drapeau famously said, the parade will take its usual route. And that route? Ste-Catherine Street.
The street of parades, including Santa at Christmas, and the longest-running, uninterrupted St. Patrick's Day parade in the world, inaugurated in 1824. And riots. The Richard Riot of 1955, the result of a suspension handed hockey's greatest player that stirred French nationalism.
Montreal's first Santa Claus parade took place in 1925, and at the time, it was the largest parade of its kind in North America. Until the 1950s, Canadians from coast to coast followed Santa's trek on radio. It started in the North Pole, didn't end until Santa arrived on his sleigh to lead the parade down St. Catherine Street.
You know why Montreal and Santa Claus have such a special bond, don't you?
No?
In 1974, the Montreal Post Office noticed a considerable number of letters addressed to Santa Claus, and those letters were being treated as undeliverable. Since the employees didn't want all those kids to be disappointed, they started answering the letters themselves. Today, Montreal is considered the official North Pole address, answering 1 million letters each Christmas from around the world, and each in the language they were written.
Yeah, sure, but you don't believe that Santa Claus actually lives here, do you?
If Canada Post thinks Santa Claus lives here, that's good enough for me. Where are you going? I did not hear the school bell.
I gotta complete my Christmas list. There used to be a private home on this corner of St. Catherine and Mansfield, but it was burnt to the ground by its owner in 1870, Thomas Neal Cream. Cream was a doctor, a graduate of McGill, in fact, but history won't remember him as a healer. In fact, you might know him better by his nickname, Jack the Ripper.
Now, everyone has a theory about who the real Ripper was, but this guy's at the top of a lot of lists. And he started right here in town, getting a girl pregnant, which forced him into a shotgun wedding and then killing his wife with prescription medications. Cream ended up in England, where he killed 5 women we know of. His last words, as the hangman's noose tightened, were, "I am Jack." Since then, handwriting experts confirm the Ripper's letters are in the same hand as Dr. Cream. We can talk all day about famous Montrealers, from doctors to directors, politicians to sports stars. So I think we can handle a little notoriety as the home base of history's most notorious serial killer, Jack the Ripper.
You, yes, you, sir. You look like a clever fellow, man of the world. I wonder, Canada has more freshwater lakes than any other country in the world. And I'd like to ask you, what percentage of the Earth's surface is water?
71%.
And how much of that is salt water?
97%.
Take it up, please. We haven't got all day.
Did you know that 70% of the world's fresh water is currently frozen in glaciers and polar ice caps?
Is there anything you don't know?
Of course.
Wrong!
7% of the world's fresh water is located in Canada. Let's keep it clean.
Inaugurated in 1963, Place des Arts is the center of the city's cultural universe. It's home to the Montreal Symphony Orchestra, les Grands Ballets Canadiens, and the Montreal Opera. Now, it has 6 halls inside of various size and charm, all sitting on top of the largest underground city in the world. By the way, it has a digital readout that goes around the building, and the whole thing is surrounded by a field of fountains. It's beautiful. Today, we're discussing the history of entertainment in Montreal with local actor Chris Blaze. Chris has worked on films featuring the likes of Julia Roberts and Hugh Jackman here in town. Now, Chris, what did the Amerindians do for entertainment before the influence of Europeans?
Oh, well, they would have social dances, or sings as they would call them, where various communities would get together and they would dance, share food, and play music. They would create instruments like drums, flutes, and whistles out of bone, wood, or animal skins. Yeah, they would play dice games similar to Hubbub, giving way to high-stakes gambling of animal skins or furs. They would gamble tools such as knives or axes sometimes. The children would often play games that would ready them for their future as scouts or hunters.
Now, when the French first arrived, what did they do with their Saturday nights?
Well, the French, for them, theatrical and musical performances were very popular, right? So dancing, singing, and concerts were really among the favorites, even though church officials and authorities would generally condemn it. I mean, that wouldn't stop them, of course. They had a huge influence on music. Yeah. They introduced instruments like the violin and the guitar, which quickly became favorites of the natives.
Wow, I guess they would have arrived with them, not built them here.
Yeah.
Now, the Brits, they arrived more as occupiers than settlers. So what do they do to amuse themselves?
Well, with the Brits, of course, you know, dancing, singing, music, theater, literature, I mean, all that was also very big with them. They added their own personal flair to it, and officials were always looking for ways to entertain the occupying troops, right? Which would often lead them to bring in favorite acts from back home. So there was always somebody in town, actors, singers, circus acts. Performing horses were always very popular. Oh, here's a little interesting tidbit from Montreal in that era. Bear with me just for a sec.
Okay.
6 months before the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, John Wilkes Booth, a popular American actor at the time, just happened to be vacating in Montreal to party. Now, there are stories that say that he was wandering around, boasting drunkenly about how he was going to take down Lincoln.
Wow, how history could have changed.
Okay, now, we admit that this might just be a Montreal lore, but coincidentally enough, John Wilkes Booth was shot dead just 2 weeks later, and on him they found a bank draft in a large sum of money from Montreal in his coat pocket.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
There has to be something to it.
There's got to be. And how about live theater in Montreal?
Well, Montreal is a pretty cool town, and it's always attracted, you know, world-class talent. One of these people was the famous magician Houdini, who at one time was considered to be the most popular entertainer in the world.
That's right.
So, when he was in town, he performed at the Princess Theater right by Phillips Square. Now, one of this guy's bits was actually to challenge audience members to punch him in the stomach.
Wow.
Okay, we're talking Superman abs of steel here. This guy was amazing.
Right.
And one evening after a performance in the dressing room, he was actually punched in the stomach without being ready for it.
Okay.
Right, by a McGill student. And as a cause of this, he actually ended up dying 2 weeks later in Detroit on Halloween night, 1926.
Oh, my heavens. What a story to be remembered by.
Yeah.
Now, listen, contemporary Montreal's got all these fantastic things. We've got white water rafting. We've got La Ronde. What other kind of stuff is going on in town?
Oh, well, Montreal is a major commercial city. I mean, there's tons of shopping, restaurants, bars, theaters, live music, you name it. Not to mention the festivals, lots and lots of festivals. You have the Francophonie, you have the 37 years in running Montreal World Film Festival. You have the International Jazz Festival, the Just for Laughs Comedy Fest. You have the International Fireworks Competition that happens here. It's been running since 1985. It's still one of the biggest draws in the city, and that's probably because it's the largest pyrotechnics competition of its kind in the world.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
This city is constantly buzzing. There's always something going on.
You know, this brings me to the point I have to mention to you. I'm generally considered a bit of an entertainer myself.
Yeah, I doubt that, Michael.
Dance off?
You're on.
Dance off! Earthquake! Rabbit animal! Wipe the blackboard. Come on, wipe the blackboard. Hold on, class dismissed. I'm wiping a blackboard in a grade school classroom. I don't know where this guy is. And scene. When Montreal started evolving from an industrial economy to one based more on entertainment and technology, Ste-Catherine turned on the lights, turned up the bass, and started singing at the top of its lungs. Now, the rest of Montreal might grab a nap now and then, but Ste-Catherine Street never sleeps. You know the right people, there are plenty of places to hang around at night. For example, look, I'm looking for a place that I can dance until dawn. Any suggestions? Well, I'll just follow you then. See you people later.
Atwater, it's a very lively street and it's very beautiful in the summer as well.
I would say the mountain, because for me it's representative of Montreal.
My favorite street is La Commune.
I would say Montreal because of its bars, and it's a pretty spacious place, and the atmosphere is really cool there. I'd have to say Union.
My favorite street is Bernard.
My favorite street is Salvatore. And why? Because it's the best.